as well. Of course, meetings such as these are only possible with the help of our sponsors. So I'd like to thank Appadil and Join Me in particular, who have backed the meeting well, and obviously the other guys who have been part of the room, part of the meeting. So please do take the chance to speak to them, all of them in the exhibition hall and meeting rooms around. I know they'll have answers to questions that you guys may have, and keen for a chat as always. So just a few sort of housekeeping items to take care of as per usual, the boring stuff. If you've got a question for the meeting system, that's my colleague Tricia. Logistical inquiries is Rebecca, and future events and most of the stuff that's going on today and tomorrow is myself. So Wi-Fi is around on all the meeting signs as well, but this is the password here, BlueStacks. Please feel free to get on and let us know if you've got any troubles with that one. Twitter is at Games Forum and hashtag MGF 2016. Again, all of this is on the posters and things such as that. Meeting system, this is the link here. I would recommend making a note of it just in case if you guys aren't on it already. Hopefully most people were able to get on beforehand, but please do take this down or feel free to ask one of the members of the team for it. We've got copies of what it says. Competitions as well, so we've got a few running today. So as you'll see in the flyers on the desk, there's one run by Spiel Games this morning with Nolan, and Appadil have a competition going as well, and Special Effect. Please ask the team for details on this and how to win some great stuff. Venture Den as well is taking place later today at 5:30, so please make sure you stick around for that. It's going to be a fast-paced, exciting session as well. And then finally today as well, I hope everyone has RSVP'd, but I know some people don't always do that. Appadil party tonight, 7 o'clock, Foundation Bar. Really looking forward to seeing as many of you guys there as possible. And so with that, I'd like to hand over to Josh Burns, who should hopefully be in the room to get us started right here.
Awesome. Glad to be back. This is my third year being involved in the event as well, so excited to be back here in Seattle. So my name is Josh. I'm the sort of host chair for today in this room, so I'll be introducing all of the sessions and probing you guys to ask questions, things like this. So just quickly, I wanted to, do you have the slides? Bear with us for a moment. Oh, and another important note, it's actually candy in the thing. It's not actual pills, if anyone was disappointed or excited by that. Okay, cool. So excited to be here. Obviously, a lot has changed over the last 3 years since I first was involved with this event. So, one of the biggest changes is, mobile gaming. If you look at smartphone and tablet, is basically larger now than individually console or PC gaming. But obviously that has, downside, right? It's a very mature market, larger development budgets, longer development timelines. You're not building a game in 6 months, most likely, year, 2 years. Massive marketing budgets, especially if you look at certain countries in Asia, millions of dollars in the first week. And from the user side, increasing expectations from a free product. And again, we have, as the market grows, it becomes more attractive to the largest players globally, continued shift of revenue towards the top end of the market. And now we also have the trend of large global companies trying to continue their massive growth, maybe from their home market, coming to the West, et cetera. So I think the focus of today's sessions, really summarize in kind of 4 key points. Globalization, so you're building content. How can I bring that to as many markets as possible to drive incremental revenue? Monetization, so I have an audience. How can I maximize the revenue that I generate from that audience? Community, so I have an audience of players. How do I maintain that player audience size and keep them engaged? And partnerships. Obviously looking to figure out how can I work with different types of partners to grow my business, if it's IP holders, investment partners, or even strategic partners for M&A. So, to me, these are all sort of essential areas for being successful in the space right now. This isn't about kind of like massive user acquisition campaigns for the majority of developers at this stage. It's much more challenging in the market. It's about being more meticulous, being more diligent and careful and planning better, and maximizing what you have and getting as much out of it as possible. So these are kind of overall themes. So on that note, we'll jump right into the content. So up first, we have Nolan, who's a founder and a CEO of Atari, as well as Brainrush. He's working, I think, on mobile games, VR stuff as well. So he's going to share some of his insights working in the industry that we can bring from the arcade space to mobile.
A platform. Kind of what are we trying to do here? And I believe that we can't talk about mobile games without really talking about the whole industry. And I think we're transitioning to a more global entertainment business in which interactivity is just one part. Let me talk a little bit about the challenges we face. Never before have we had so much change at such a velocity. And it is both challenging and fascinating to a lot of people. I mean, we've all heard about the singularity. Nobody really knows what it is, but they think they sound smart when they talk about it. Event horizons, gee, isn't that cool? But what it really means is that the pace of change is wonderful because entertainment is driven by novelty. The wonderful games of 10 years ago aren't really great. I mean, believe it or not, people are not still playing Pong. My journey started here at PDP-1 at the university and at an amusement park. I was probably the only guy in the world who was a carny and studying electrical engineering at a place where there was actually there were actually video screens connected to a computer. Yeah, we had roller coasters and all kinds of stuff. And I played a game called Space War, which was written by a guy at MIT, and I was mesmerized. And I knew at the university that if I put a coin slot on that screen, that I could make money. And then I divided 25 cents for 3 minutes into $1 million computer, and the math didn't work. So, fast forward, graduated, went to work in industry, and the costs came down, and all of a sudden it was possible. And of course, this was a game which we got a false positive. We tested it in a bar next to Stanford. All the people loved the game. All the people were engineers and graduate students. You put it in a game in a beer bar, nobody home. It was too complex for them. And so we did Pong. There are two major innovations here. One is the polka dot shirt. Didn't catch on. The other one was Pong, and of course it represented the gold standard of the launch of the video game business. All coin op. It was a wonderful product to launch a company, and we had fun. Then I did a thing that sort of put the Tiki Room, Atari, and came out with Chuck E. Cheese. So we took all of that technology and turned it into a child's playground. That was when I was dyeing my beard black. Then I did robots and automobile navigation and various things. And I hired Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs and Wozniak actually did Breakout for me. So that was great fun. And of course, when he decided to go off and start his own company, I was offered a third of Apple Computer for $50,000, and I said no. I have subsequently regretted that, but it's still one of those things that happens in life, and you can't paper your wall with woulda, shoulda, couldas. Did a couple of things, and this was actually some of the first touchscreen things. But the terminals cost about $10,000 a table. It was a restaurant. Everybody loved it. It was great fun. And then the market blew up, and that was a whole nother story. Games and entertainment are all about pushing boredom back. And boring is actually the fundamental driver of this business. A few minutes on a subway, waiting in line somewhere. Mobile has the power to get rid of boredom in micro slices. And so a lot of times we need to be able to think about that. And yes, this slide is truly out of position. But now, here's the question. Are these people, are they playing together? Are they together right now? Are these people playing together? I assert they're not. And in that, I believe is a really interesting opportunity of figuring out a way to create group games in which you have casual people having fun together, not disparately. How many know who this guy is? Goody Pie. You know, he violates every rule that I've ever thought was necessary for a celebrity. First of all, it's the wrong name, but more than that, he turns game ideas into gold. Very interesting phenomenon. Basically, for me, I don't understand it. And that really bugs me, because I like to understand stuff. Analytics. Turns out that I learned analytics right from the beginning. It was called counting the quarters. If there were a lot of quarters, the people liked the game. If there were very few, they didn't. Today, analytics drives more of what we're doing, and anybody that doesn't have a serious analytics engine and data and ways of climbing in and fine-tuning your games, they're missing the 90% probability of hitting a breakout. And it's all kinds of things, from not just play, but when do people die? When do people give up? When do people reach into their pocket and pull out money? That's really, really critical today. Games have a half-life. It's boredom. And the half-life is driven by the flow state. And the flow state is to keep people balanced between too hard and too frustrating and too easy and boring. And the better you can do that, the longer it is. Like, for example, Pokemon Go had one hell of a ride. Oops. But you can tell by the game dynamics that it's not going to last for a long time. A year from now, you're going to be looking at Pokemon Go and saying, Pokemon what? Because the game dynamics are very thin, and people will get bored with it. I believe that we are going to be entering an area where game and story become merged in some very interesting ways. And the reason for it is that story has an effect on some of the same dopamine sensors areas that games have. And so if you can get it right, it's the merge between those two dopamine things. Yes, Virginia, games are addictive. The best thing we can do is get something that's addictive, working with us. And so I think storytelling and some of these games are very good. And so you can say, it was a dark and stormy night, and I played a game, and I had a challenge, and I had fun, and I lived an alternative life. You're starting to see it coming with games like Device 6 and Sailor's Dream. But now we have another entry. And you say, this is the Amazon Echo, and this is the Google voice recognition system. I personally believe that there's going to be a merge between these systems and the mobile game market. And so my boys, I've got 8 kids. I know that's excessive, but I actually did it for intellectual, arrogant reasons. I figured that the dumb people were having all the kids, and I wanted to balance it. Anyway. But they're all, all the boys are involved in games at some level. And one of them is working on some links between these wonderful home automation systems and our stuff. Cast AR is an interesting one that is going to be, I think, focused. It's going to control the tabletop. Of course, we all know about Magic Leap. I personally don't see the interest in having a whale in the gymnasium, but there's a lot of people and they've raised a lot of money. I actually am predicting the Magic Leap is going to have a problem because I don't think they're going to hit the price points. And while the technology is really cool, I think it's going to be industrial grade and it won't be consumer grade. And all that's fine, but it's got to be cheap. HoloLens, we're here at the altar of Microsoft, so I'm not going to say anything bad about them, though I should. No, but Minecraft, what a cool game that one is. I've got a granddaughter who's 8. She lives in Minecraft world. It's become more interesting to her than anything else. And it's on a tablet, so why not? Augmented reality, big stuff, Pokemon Go, PlayStation VR, Oculus. The iBeacon never did take off, and I still think there's a game opportunity in there. Estimo, iBeacon, cheaper. Brainrush, my company in education. Educational apps are a great way to go broke. Don't confuse schools with wanting to teach children. They're focused on preserving the status quo in terms of the bureaucracy. And every penny that goes into our schools, this is a rant, just in case you want to know. Every penny that goes into our schools is sucked up by the bureaucracy. Like in Los Angeles, there's 1 million square feet downtown, full of people, no teachers, no students. They're just there doing their thing. Nobody knows what they're doing. Thank God. Anyway, learning-based games, try to avoid them. I'm teaching at George Mason University in game design and seeing if I can't pollute some young minds in some very different ways. I'm working on some wonderful games with Spill. Spill is in Amsterdam, and we have a whole series of new games coming. And Spill has some interesting characteristics. First of all, they're Dutch. which all of a sudden says that why do we go to Amsterdam to build games? It has some very good analytics, a wonderful corporate culture, and a power to, I think, market that is going to be extraordinary. And I'm working on a series of games that are Saga Games. Now, why did I get involved with this? First of all, I never, ever had a game that was doing a couple of $1 million a day. And when I played Candy Crush, I said, you know, people are going to get tired of this. So what can we do to catch the players that are tired of Candy Crush? I said, okay, let's get a different metric. Let's get away from SWAP 3 and do some weird stuff. And so I started working with them, and they decided that I had gone completely, crazy. And I thought that I'd hidden that. But I actually believe that insanity is way underrated. Because what you really want to do is you want to be very, very open to new and different and crazy. I can honestly say that some of the best ideas that I've been around, that introductions sounded totally off the wall and nuts. And, you know, I think that madness should be embraced wherever you find it, as long as they don't have a gun. Anyway, Candy Crush Sagas, Clash of Clans, get ready for Blocks. Blocks was a game that I did in the coin-operated world almost 20 years ago, and it was consistently one of the highest earners, and it had some interesting tools. And right now we've got 200 levels, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. And plus, when you have a happy face with sunglasses, it has to be cool, just by definition. I'm working on a new kind of VR company. It's called Modal VR. We have a game called Mythic Combat, which you have to play in a football field. You run around, scream and shout, you can play around with it. This is our authoring tools where you can actually author worlds inside of the VR environment. We can put 10 people in the same construct over 900,000 square feet. And yeah, if we want to do education, which I advise you not to, we can do things where you put people inside the human body in some interesting ways. I like Reigns. Have you ever played that? It's like a game and Tinder put together. How could you go wrong? But I think that it's one of those areas, again, where there's stories. And I've got another son that's working on a Reigns thing. Crossing Roads, what a great version of Frogger, This is a game that I loved in its day, but now Crossing Roads is simply better. I'm watching slot machines. I've designed several slot machines in my career, and the fact that people are willing to play slot machines in which there's no payout is really baffling to me. And then, of course, there's EGaming. Any of you have been to one of these things? For 300 euros, you can get a table and a chair and a 50 gigabit line and a pup tent where you can game until you drop, and then you can go back into the other part of the convention hall, crawl into your pup tent after you've had a cup of noodle, which is presented to you in bales. It's an interesting phenomenon. It's like Woodstock for geeks, and so we're having a good, it's the golden age of games. So I guess to summarize, do it aggressively, market it uniquely, have fun in one of the greatest businesses around, because the game business will always keep you jumping and always keep you young. I'm getting old, however, so it's not been doing a very good job. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Hello. Questions? Anyone have questions for Nolan? We have a microphone there, a giant microphone. Here we go. Hang on one second. Hang on one second. They're bringing another microphone for you.
Test. Okay. Why not education games?
Say again?
Why not educational games?
There's no market. I mean, do it for the good of humanity. Don't expect to make a buck. This is the big problem. And this is kind of people who are more into business games in general, to marketing games. And unfortunately, I wish it were not true. I think that properly done educational games, that we could put the full curriculum of 4 years of high school, and we could teach it to children in 6 months using the proper game tools, the proper computer tools. Breaking through the bureaucracy, I tried it for 3 years, and I'm pretty good at that, and I failed. Now, if you can succeed, my hat's off to you, but I couldn't, and that's why.
We have a question on the other side there.
Sorry, can you raise your hand, please?
Can you raise your hand again?
Thank you.
Thank you. From someone who had such a start at the genesis of arcade games, I've noticed, my question to you is, I've noticed that a lot of arcade games are now adopting IPs from mobile. I saw Crossy Road in an arcade the other day. I saw Fruit Ninja in an arcade. I'm sorry, it's not a more specific question, but what's your take? Is it really truly coming full circle, or does that mean that we have more to discover about arcade games and mobile games at the same time? Or does it just mean that they operate on the same basic principles?
I think it's a little bit of both, but you know, in the early days of Atari, we knew which games to put into our console because they'd been successful at coin-op. You know, and coin-op, like I say, it was the best market research at the time. You counted the quarters at the end of the week, and if the coin box was full, you had a good game, and if it was empty, it was crap. So what happened is that the game business sort of went through several cycles. And one of the cycles was that in the early days, probably through most of the 70s, 80% of the population, 80, it's massive, said that they'd played a video game within the last 48 hours, or in the last month. You had to take grandparents and things into that world in order for that to happen. Then the games got complex. That lost the casual game player. Then they got violent. That lost the women. And so in the middle 80s, the game business actually, in terms of broadening their reach, it actually dropped it. Mobile is doing the thing where simple, clever games are expanding that market again. However, there's still like I read this statistic and I've forgotten, but it's about 70% of the cell phone users have not downloaded even one app. That's really cool. That says we've got a lot of opportunity. I think that casual games, simple games that were the meat of the coin operating business are perfect for the casual games on a cell phone that are meant to be played in small bunches. Like you don't generally play a mobile game for 2 or 3 hours. That's the exception. Whereas console games, desktop games, that's quite common.
Thank you very much.
Are we out of time?
One more?
One more question, of course, way as far away from you as possible.
Let's hope my aim's good enough. You ready?
I wanted to ask a question about if you have some of your favorite examples of marketing uniquely, since you mentioned that.
Say again?
If you have some examples of marketing uniquely, especially on a limited budget, since you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, I think that the controversy, I have this advantage that I can say outrageous things and I get quoted. And I think that too many marketing programs err on the side of complexity when the simple message is much more tweetable and has more power. Cleverness always wins. And while money gives you footprint, call to action that is really good is better. So I think that today, rather than making decisions about marketing premises and marketing things, try to do as much testing as you can and just create a panoply of approaches, issues, verbiage. Keep it tight, keep it short, and then test it. And you can end up being 10, 20, 200 times more effective. In the early days of Atari, we tested a couple of TV commercials. The TV commercials were almost indistinguishable from each other. One cleared the shelves, and the other didn't. And for the life of us, we didn't know why. But if we'd have spent our advertising money on the wrong commercial, we'd have been hosed. It was a time when Atari had no money, which was most of the time.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Up next, we have CY, who's the CEO and founder of Join Me. He's going to give us a talk around the importance of community.